This is the new Hyundai Bayon, and I think it's fair to say that this car has never scored particularly highly in the street cred department. It doesn't have so much reputation in the car world. However, with a refreshed spec list, with a slightly updated interior and exterior design, then the Bayon is slowly becoming a little bit of an underdog in the crossover SUV category. In the Hyundai range, it sits perfectly between the Kona and the i20. So if you want more space, be able to sit higher up on the road, but you don't want a car that's really awkward to park, then this might be the car for you. And in this video, we're going to be talking about them updates, talking about how it drives out on the road, and whether it could be the car for you. Now, it might not have a highly positive reputation in the car world, and about 10 years ago, if you were under the age of 60, you probably wouldn't be looking at this whatsoever. But I think the Bayon has slowly started to bring it back and become a formidable vehicle in the crossover SUV category. Yes, it's not going to blow your socks off or excel in any area, but it will get you to your destination in a safe and comfortable manner and keep them running costs down. First, let's talk about its design, and with it being a crossover, it kind of falls perfectly in between that typical SUV styling, either being cute and a bit forgettable or trying too hard to look a bit too rugged and look like a 4x4. I feel like this sits perfectly in between. Now, in terms of its silhouette, it's fairly basic. Its front design has had some upgrades over recent years. The addition of that light bar, which runs all the way across. I do like the fact you still get an actual front grille. Yes, it feels more modern, and the fact that this bonnet feels a bit more flush. That Hyundai branding is flush to the face of this car. But I do like the fact that they've kept some form of a front grille, albeit a little bit lower, and kind of just looks a bit like an accentuated bumper. But overall, it's smart looking. It's certainly not going to win any awards in the design department, but it kind of has that type of exterior look where it's not going to make people turn heads and go, wow, what an amazing looking car, but it's smart, it's modern, it does the job. Down the side, and you'll notice it's somewhat compact proportions, roughly 4.18 metres long and just over 1.7 metres tall, which means it's going to be easier to park, easier to drive, and unlikely to upset your neighbours by owning an obnoxiously large vehicle. You'll get 16-inch alloy wheels from standard, opt for the top spec, where you'll get 17 inches. Both of them still going to give a bit of edge to the car. Again, like the front, they're not particularly mind-blowing in terms of the looks or the design or actual premium nature, but they look good enough for a crossover SUV. That kind of rugged nature seen on the front bumper is reflected all the way down the silhouette. The different bevels in the doors, the privacy glass at the back, and the roof bars that come as standard. It's quite clear this is a crossover SUV, albeit only slightly bit bigger than the i20. The only notable difference is it sits a tiny bit higher up on the road. But I think them design characteristics at the side do make it seem more like an SUV than an actual hatchback, albeit a very small SUV. And I think that level of simplicity, practicality, and also value for money is kind of essential for a car like this. I feel like if you're in the market for a slightly larger car, if you're used to a hatchback, and you kind of like the Bayon, then if it was too high price point or it was too complicated in terms of you have to go up the spec levels to actually get a good car, then it would really take away from it. It doesn't excel particularly in its performance, doesn't necessarily shine out on the road when it comes to its design. It just feels like an overall good package. So I think them spec levels have been vital to this actually starting to become a bit of an underdog. When it comes to the interior, then this is where I feel the Bayon has somewhat greatly improved, because it feels more modern, it feels a lot more refreshed than previous models, but it certainly isn't blowing me away in that sense. It kind of feels like a premium or high-end interior from 2016, but we're in 2026, so it kind of feels a little bit of a drawback. But in terms of the price point, you will get everything from that base spec: a 10.25-inch touchscreen, you'll get cruise control, lane keep assist, digital dash, and all your steering controls, plenty of USB chargers. Go for the top spec, and that will house a wireless phone charger. And you also get nice comforts like heated seats and heated steering wheels, a decent amount of storage, a little pocket down here, obviously 2 cup holders, deep pockets in your doors. So overall, it looks good enough. it just isn't that type of car that you sit and you go, wow, this is amazing. But on the flip side, it also feels a bit comforting, because sometimes you don't need this massively over-designed interior that houses tech that you probably won't use in every drive. This kind of has all the tech that you need, including a reversing camera and parking sensors, has that type of practicality, but isn't showing off or boasting. The infotainment system is rather practical in the sense that you have shortcut buttons underneath, so you're not constantly having to fight through the different screens when you're out on the road if you just want to change your radio station or change where you're going on the built-in sat-nav. But if I was you, I'd use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Although this actual system, the Hyundai infotainment screen, is rather good in terms of it's not laggy in any sense. It's rather easy to use, even as a first-time driver of a Bayon or even a Hyundai. I just think Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it gives you everything. It's what you probably know, so that's probably what you'd use. The digital dash kind of just is taken from any existing Hyundai models, but it does have your traffic sign recognition, all your settings for your lane keep assist, cruise control, and it kind of just displays all the information that you need. I do like the animation when you change between different driving modes of eco, normal and sport, especially when you change it into sport, and it makes you have these racing style gauges that kind of looks out of place inside a Bayon, because the performance of this certainly isn't race car or track ready, but I quite like that addition of it. It gives it a little bit of an edge, and that type of animation certainly enhances the Bayon, and that's kind of one of the features that when you get in and you take it for a test drive, that you might go, actually, yeah, this is a decent car, it drives nice, and it has these little quirks about it. When it's shut off and you're just looking at it, personally, it doesn't blow me away. It might do you. It feels quite safe. It feels somewhat plain, but on the flip side, it's certainly better than a Bayon 10 years ago. We'll get wireless phone charger as well with the top spec. The back seats has sufficient amount of space. It's a good amount of storage, both two pockets in the doors, a little one down here with a USB-C charger housed in that center module. The design of the seats is exactly the same as the front. I do like the fact it comes with privacy glass even from that base spec, but there isn't necessarily much going on back here. It's a back seat of a car that's comfortable, has space and storage. There's a decent amount of headroom. I think 3 adults might struggle in terms of leg room. As I said, it kind of feels just like a slight upgrade on the i20 in terms of its dimensions. It's pretty much the same wheelbase, meaning that leg space is only a tiny bit more than what you'd get in a slightly larger hatchback. A fold-down armrest would have been nice. You do get ISOFIX points if you're going to use this as a family car, and the way the rear doors open, they open at almost a 90-degree angle. So if you were to use this as a family car, then I think getting children in and out of car seats wouldn't be an issue at all, because I would say, quick maths, probably about 85 degrees they pan out. So there's a decent amount of opening, so adding to that practicality. I wouldn't necessarily be upset if I was thrown into the back of one of these on a 200-mile stretch of motorway. It's comfortable enough. I think I could have a kit back here. If the Bayon is going to excel in any area or kind of outshine its market rivals, it would have to hone in on its practicality, which I think it does perfectly with all them features you get from standard and also its price point. But not to forget its boot capacity. 411 litres. You drop them rear seats and you're going to get even more space. Even though this could be a family car, I think it'll be great for just couples wanting a great practical runabout. But 411 litres for a somewhat small crossover SUV, I think is rather impressive. And across the wider car market, it performs pretty well in that category. As for its rear design, and it has a little bit more of an edge compared to its face, because you get that contrasting black panel which goes across. You have that LED light bar reflected at the front. You do have a slight different spoiler section, which kind of feels a tiny bit weird, because the performance of this definitely isn't sporty to require one of them. However, it certainly gives it a bit of an edge. I do like the way it folds in. It looks like a slightly sharper version of that Renault Megane from about 15 years ago, but it's much cleaner. It doesn't feel clunky. It doesn't look awkward. And I think the rear of this certainly looks better than the front if you compare the two and actually wanted to pick a winner. It feels a little bit like the updated i20, just a little bit chunkier. Now, I'm sure you won't be shocked at me saying that the Bayon certainly doesn't have a brilliant performance. Across the manual and the automatic, you're going to get a 0 to 60 either 11.8 or around 13.2. So obviously a bigger engine would have been a lot better. It kind of makes you think, if that turbo aspect wasn't housing that powertrain, what would the 0 to 60 actually be? So them 0 to 60 times, you'd probably expect into this to drive like an absolute hairdryer. But it kind of doesn't. I mean, the engine massively over revs if you put the foot to the floor, but it certainly feels a tad quicker than it does on paper. So to join roundabouts, to be traveling at 30 miles an hour, or you need to, pull out from a slip road, then it certainly has enough give, it has enough punchiness to not be so detrimental to actually owning this car, and you're almost terrified to take it out because you have to wait for the biggest gap possible. Still, can somewhat move. It's only when you start to get up to 40, 50 that it definitely starts to slow down massively. And from a cold start, it takes a little bit, but then when you start to hit 10 miles an hour, it does just start to slowly push off. 0 to 60 times aren't brilliant, and there's certainly quicker cars, especially for the size of this, out there. But I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. It's still decent. And what is certainly decent is its economical factor and its efficiency out on the road. The Bayon doesn't come with a hybrid variant, but looking at its miles per gallon, you'd almost think that it might be a mild hybrid, but it's not. It's stonewall petrol, because the miles per gallon is just under the 50 mark, which for a car of this size, yes, it's not overly big, but it's certainly bigger than a hatchback, smaller than a compact SUV. For it to be a solid petrol vehicle with 50 miles per gallon, I don't think it should be understated. Finally, there's an area that the Bayon massively excels in. This will be really cheap to run. One thing I'm really intrigued to try out is the sport mode, so we'll just switch it over. And once these traffic lights go green, we'll actually see how much that's effective, because on first view, driving this about for only about 20 minutes, I'm kind of thinking surely it's not going to do that much. One, it's a Bayon. Two, it's 0 to 60 time are pretty small. But we'll just see. It does give it a little bit of an upgrade. I mean, this cold start is where that 0 to 60 time definitely drops down. On second view and the second testing, it does take a little bit. It sounds like it's over revving, then when them revs come down, you massively push off. So the sport mode does actually give it a bit more punchy power. Yes, that is going to drop down the economical factor, it's going to use more petrol. But I think with that sport mode on, it massively excels where the Bayon falls down in terms of its performance. With this being the top spec, you will get access to the Blue Link, which will allow you to set up your phone and connect it to your car. So you're going to get updates from your car. You can even get weather and sports updates through your infotainment screen as well. It's organise your calendar. Definitely getting a lot of car for less than 24 grand. With the size, with the practicality and all the features, that's for me is where the Bayon excels and certainly would go under the radar. So then, what's the verdict on the new Hyundai Bayon? Yes, it's not the most exciting car to look at, to sit in or to drive, but for me it does have a lot of pros about it. It feels comfortable out on the road, it has low running costs, it has a somewhat sharp design and lots of practicality from its safety features to its storage space. In terms of negatives, it could just be a little bit punchier. Them 0 to 60 times are kind of on the lower side for a car of this category. Would be nice if there was an upgraded powertrain option, something like a 1.5 litre rather than just sticking to the 1 litre. But with it just having that 1 litre, it means the price of this is rather affordable. It's kind of like a premium hatchback in terms of its price point, yet you're getting so much more car for your money in terms of space and storage and features that it provides you. And if you want to find out more about the new Hyundai Bayon or any of its Hyundai counterparts, then contact Corkills Hyundai Northwich.